Welcome to the G-Spot.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's G-Spot for number 45 for the G's. Okay, what is the G-Spot? Well, it's the weird and wonderful place where we get to see the weird and wonderful things that happen in the Dynamic GT League. And this week it's 3 reports from an action-packed Suzuka race, which if you haven't seen that race, folks, you should go and watch it because proper action-packed. So we've got 3 incidents to go through. There was 4 things reported, but one of them was Gary. He didn't really give any details, so he couldn't really look at anything. But kind of an apology to Jason for taking him out a couple of times. Okay, well, yeah, I'm on my own for this one, as you might be able to tell. It's been a while since I've been able to get around the G-Spot, which is a shame. So let's crack on. For G1, Race 5 report, Jason gave me gravel rash. So this is from Critical. It's lap 1, 58 seconds in. This is Jason pushed me wide. Okay, well, let's have a look at what the stewards mentioned about that. So the steward's view, Jason moves across on Critical, approaching the first Degner corner. Critical is pushed off the track. The steward's verdict, as Jason didn't wait for Critical afterwards, a stage 2 penalty for forcing another driver off the track, -3 points is to be applied. Now, Jason has commented on the steward's report on Facebook, apologising, saying he had no idea that this had happened, so it'd probably be useful for Jason as well to be able to see what did happen. But this was kind of cut and dry as far as stewards goes. So Jason ahead of Critical here, but then Critical just gets up alongside, and it's just that little movement over to the left that nudges Critical onto the grass and out wide. So we see it from Jason's view here, and it just moves to the left there, and and in this situation it's very easy to not know that you've done this. I've been in this situation before, so he just moves across a little bit, and there's nothing that Critical can do. If he brakes any harder, he's going to spin. So looking at a little bit off board, so there is a little bit of contact initially, but yeah, so not a lot Critical could do there at all. And unfortunately, Jason didn't know it had happened, and it's one of those, if he knew it had happened, I do believe he'd have waited for him. So yeah, massively unfortunate for Critical, but that's why we have boost on for those kind of situations. It means that Critical's race isn't over. Check out incident number 3, G3, for that scenario. Right, okay, that one's nice and simple, so let's crack on with the next one. G2 Race 5 report, Risky Rich, don't worry about a ding. Okay, so from Race 5, 13:30, Rich comes back on track, pushing me wide, then makes contact. Okay, so let's have a look at what the stewards say about this one. Steward's view, Rich makes an unintentional unsafe return to track. He tries to rejoin on the left but gets sideways and ends up in the middle of the track, which results in both Critical being impeded, I think I was meant to say, and Jimmy, but slight wrong word in there. Critical also loses it on his own as he tries to get back up to speed. The steward's verdict is no penalty, as Rich does the right thing by waiting on 2 occasions. So the second part of this, it's difficult to know for 100% certain if there was contact or not, but we'll look from Critical here. So Critical's coming around the corner, we'll see Rich trying to recover, and from this view we don't really see much at all, but we will see that Rich is waiting, and here comes Jimmy, and that's where the slight incorrect wording was in the report, the steward's view there. Critical is off again, and that's where it's possible that he's lost it on his own, but it is also possible that there was a bit of contact. Now Rich Blues does also have an off up here on his own, but he is letting Critical back through. So yes, we'll see it from here. Yeah, Rich gets sideways and there's nothing Critical can do to avoid it, and I don't think there's really much Rich could have done to avoid it, but he's done the right thing and waited, and this is where Critical loses the rear end, and into the barrier he goes. Now, as I said, Rich does have a moment himself, but this is the point where Rich is trying to get back to track, but the car's sliding all over the place for him, and sometimes it can be like that when you've got 2 on 2 off, the track that is. It's very easy to end up getting sideways. Now, doesn't look like there's contact there, but there may have been. As I mentioned a couple of times, Rich has his moment. Now, for anyone that wonders about whether Rich was waiting or not, well, if he wasn't, he should really be in first gear or second gear trying to get it going again. Critical goes through and Rich drives on. Now, for Jimmy, with the question of whether Jimmy was impeded, the opinion is he can see those 2 ahead, so he has got quite a bit of time to position himself around Rich Blues there. Now look again from Critical, and we just see that sideways motion from Rich Blues and sends Critical off. And we're going to have a look as well from this view if we can tell if there's any contact or not. Very, very difficult to tell, but because Rich waited for the first one and appears to have waited for the second one, there's no further action. But yeah, so as far as Jimmy is concerned, it's felt that Jimmy could actually see from further away that there was a couple of cars there and had time to react, whereas for Critical, although he could see that Rich Blues was sort of off the track, he didn't have any time to react. So yeah, if Rich hadn't have waited, it would have been a penalty to Rich on that one. Okay, those 2 are simple. So now that they're done and dusted, should we have a look at the big motherfucking crash that happened at the end of the race? And if you haven't seen the race, as I've already said, go and watch it. Because this may well be the biggest end of race crash in DGT history. I don't know who caused it, but let's see what the stewards say. G3 Race 5 report, Senna and Prost have nothing on us at Suzuka. Okay, so Critical brought this one to the admin's attention as well, or the steward's attention. Final lap incident at the chicane. It was reported by another driver as well, who later rescinded their report, I think because it had been reported already. Alright, stewards, what have you got to say? Steward's view, Demon R brakes slightly too late and misses the chicane, and then collects SRI, who then spins, with several other drivers then impacted as well. The steward's verdict is no penalty. While this was deemed an unsafe return to track, Demon R clearly does the right thing afterwards by stopping by the side of the track and waiting for all impacted drivers. The stewards did consider a penalty for Demon R because of the number of drivers impacted and because of it being the final corner of the race. However, because there is no recent precedent for this and the initial mistake from Demon R wasn't deemed to be a what the fuck moment, the stewards cannot apply a penalty. Now, just to mention there, within the rules, if anyone doesn't know what the fuck moment is, basically, let's say, for example, what we're about to see here, if it had been Demon R coming in for a mega dive bomb and wiping out a load of cars and waiting, then the waiting may not have been enough to avoid being given a penalty. If you do something that is deemed to be a what the fuck moment, and you wait, you can still be penalised for it if it is felt that that is the right course of action to take. Right, okay, let's take a look then at a bit of footage, shall we? Now, one thing I will say is, because I was involved in this, and so was SRI, and neither of us had any input into the steward's decision on this. Okay, so we see SRI, Demon R side by side into the R130. Here comes Jimmy as well. And from this view, we don't really see much of the late braking, but we see Demon R goes on, and we see Nelly's there as well, and then we see SRI spinning, and then there's a lot going on, and it continues on further round the corner. Obviously, we do see Demon R stopping and waiting. Now, I mentioned on the race commentary about how this is quite a big self-penalisation for Demon R, because within the championship standings, waiting as he has done, I mean, he could have continued on, finished, taken a 3-point penalty and probably ended up with more points, but it's not the right thing to do. Okay, so we'll go on board with Demon here then, and yeah, a little bit late on the brakes and going straight on. Now, Nelly being there, I can be honest and say it was off-putting, and I was trying to avoid Nelly as well, but it did mean that I ended up going back onto the track in an unsafe manner. Okay, SRI, can't believe he attempted an overtake up the inside, shocking, but to be fair, great bit of racing there side by side, and we see, yeah, Demon's going to go straight on. Jimmy a little lucky around the outside. Now SRI going for the apex here is fine because Demon is off the track, but once that contact happens, there's nothing SRI can do, and he gets collected a couple of times. Now we'll have a look from Jimmy's view. Now Jimmy's done quite nicely here as well. He sees the space, goes for the space, brakes at a decent point, gets it slowed down, doesn't follow Demon R, tucks in behind SRI, and yes, he tags SRI there, but there's absolutely nothing Jimmy could do about that. There's no way he could avoid that. Now for Rich Blues, also following, gets lucky. Or well, not lucky, but he's okay side by side at the moment, a bit of a gap, and then bosh, SRI's there. And again, nothing Rich Blues could do about that, nothing SRI could do about that, so can't put any blame on Rich for that extra contact. Looking from Critical here, so Critical has a look around the outside of Rich, and Critical's going to have to sort of take evasive, which kind of gets away with until the car suddenly goes sideways, and we'll have sideways again, and we'll have another look at that in a moment. So yeah, as I said, a lot going on. Now for SGP, he actually backed out at the R130 and I think let Rich through because he hasn't got the tyres, and gets so lucky here as we see Rich kill SRI. SRI just collected Critical a bit there. That's what got Critical wobbling. Now we saw Nelly in the barrier. Nelly goes wide at the R130. Now dirty tyres, brakes late as well, so ends up going straight on. Now the stewards did say that they didn't feel that Nelly does an unsafe return to track here, so as he goes back on to the road, and then he's surrounded by cars, and then this bit with Critical we will have another look at, but massively unfortunate for the both of them. Okay, so we'll have another look at Demon R here then. So yeah, it was a little late on the brakes. We see Nelly and yeah, Demon R trying to get around the corner and avoid Nelly, and end up sliding across the road into SRI, and then look from off board on SRI. And as I said, he's entitled to go for the apex there. Nothing Jimmy could do, nothing Rich could do, and yeah, ends up in the barrier. So Jimmy did do quite well here to avoid all the major sort of carnage. He's held Ray around a little bit there, but moves him up to 4th place. For Rich Blues, I mean, very, very unlucky, trying to give Critical a bit of space, Critical taking evasive, and Rich was basically just following him, and then there's Ray. There's the actual little bit of contact I mentioned about on Critical. Well, what happens then is that little bit of contact puts Critical in a position here where now he's got 2 on, 2 off, and the car, as he gets back onto the tarmac, is going to have a major tank slapper straight into Nelly. Nothing that either of these two drivers could do about that, and off they go into the barrier. So we can see it from this point, yeah, so nothing Nelly could do to avoid that one, and yeah, a hell of a lot going on. So yeah, I don't know really what else to say about that one. It's difficult for me to say much because obviously I wasn't involved in the discussions, the stewarding discussions regarding this one, although there was quite a bit of conversation after this about whether there should be a change in the rules, and we spent a bit of time looking at the rule book, and one of the things that I'd said to the stewards at this point of checking the rules was, if they felt that this should be a penalty, then they should 100% give a penalty, even if it goes against what it says in the rule book. But that's not what's happened here. So we looked at the rule book, and the clarification of that was given in the steward's comments. So like, had it been a what the fuck moment by Demon R, then a penalty could be applied. In this situation, a penalty can't be applied because he's done the correct thing. He's let everybody that's involved through, but the admins will discuss whether there should be another factor or another option available to them in these kind of situations. But there we go. Right. One of the shorter G-spots, surprisingly. But let's see, this is what happens when Ray's not here to waffle on and talk a load of gibberish all the time, isn't it, eh? Right, well, that's it for this week. The next track is Road Atlanta, and it's a tight little bugger, so I would not be surprised if we see a few incidents there as well. So we may have another busy G-spot next week. I'd hope not, so that I can have a bit of a break. But yeah, we'll see how things go. Right, have a good one, everybody. Take it easy, and we'll see you all again soon.